the author this evening. So, okay, so here is where I usually introduce the moderator. I say lovely words about the moderator who's going to join us for tonight's conversation. Well, it's me. So my name's Claire. I'm the event coordinator for Village Books, and I pretty much called dibs on being the conversation, the interlocutor for this evening's event. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our author. Jessica H. Stone is the author of The Last Outrageous Woman and Doggy on Deck, as well as tonight's featured book, Blood on a Blue Moon, a Sheaffer Blue mystery. She's here to discuss this one with me. She lives in a small town by the sea, and she collects pens. Fountain pens or any kind of pen?
Fountain pens.
Yep. All right. So, Jess, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the virtual events, the Readings Gallery. Who would have ever thought that you and I would be doing an event like this?
I don't know. You know, just a couple of years ago, we used to go do an event and then go drinking afterwards. So I'm not quite sure what happened.
Well, a little thing called a pandemic happened, and but one day we will be together again. And just a little background: Jess and I do go sort of way back. Jess is a regular at Village Books and a former employee at Village Books. She used to be in our publishing team, and also part of writing groups at Village Books when we got to have writing groups at Village Books. So we've known each other for a long time. And when we were scheduling this event, and I pretty much was like, pick me. So I'm sure that there are other people who are probably better qualified to fill tonight's role, but too bad. So anyway, okay.
Lovely words about you. You're lovely, and I'm so glad you're doing this.
Well, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about your book. So I just want you to set it up for us. Tell us a little bit about the background, the genesis of Blood on a Blue Moon.
Okay. Before I do that, I do have one announcement. Today is my cat's 8th birthday. His name is Malarkey, and he was born on April Fool's Day. So I just have to give a shout out to my cat, who may or may not jump up on something in the next, few minutes. I don't know.
Oh, your cat shares a birthday with my grandmother, because today my grandmother would have been 100 years old. So my grandmother and Malarkey. Yay, that's wonderful. Yay. Okay, sorry.
April Fool's. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Proceed.
So, yes, Blood on a Blue Moon, the way that this story sort of came about, I used to live on a floating home on Lake Union in downtown Seattle. And I was teaching at the UW at the time, and I would go teach and then come and hang out on the boat and go kayaking and whatnot. But anyway, I was coming down the dock one day, and I saw this guy working on a float. They have these big floats. They're like drums that are hermetically sealed, and they fix them to the bottom of the houseboats, and that keeps the houseboats floating, right? So I looked at it for a while, and I said to him, could you fit a body in that? And he looked at me and goes, are you getting a divorce? And I'm like, why? No, I'm not getting a divorce. Why? And he goes, because you're the second woman today that's asked me if a body would fit in one of these. You people are weird. So I kept thinking about that.
Bizarre. That is so weird. I mean, it's not weird to me that you would think that, because as a writer and always trying to come up with unique ideas, or but the fact that somebody else asked that same question, that's funny. I wonder
if she was getting a divorce.
Yeah.
Well, I got thinking about that, Claire, and I kept thinking, wouldn't it be cool to hide a body in one of these things? And I wonder what would happen. They're sealed. How long would it stay under there? And as I just kept thinking, this book started to take shape. Now, the bodies, it's not a spoiler alert or anything, but the bodies don't end up in drums in this, but they are the whole mystery takes place in a houseboat community in downtown Seattle. So I was able to bring in a lot of what I know about living on a floating home into the book. So that's how I got the idea. I like, oh, let's stuff somebody in a barrel.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that there is a body stuffed in something. So it's very interesting.
There are lots of bodies in this book.
Yep. You do a really great job of painting a picture of this houseboat community. Just describing each houseboat, each little vessel, and the kind of quirky characters that live in it. So I really enjoyed reading about the houseboat community. So tell us about Sheaffer Blue. Who is Sheaffer Blue?
Yes, who is Sheaffer Blue? She is this gal. And I saw a lot of writers out there when we had the chat up, a whole lot of writers, and they will all know exactly what I'm talking about, as will you. Your characters live inside you all the time, and they're talking and talking and talking. And Sheaffer Blue is this gal that's been with me for years, and I don't really know why she hangs around with me, but she does. And what I can tell you about Sheaffer is what she wants more than anything in the world, what her biggest desire is. All she wants to do is sail her boat, which is called Ink Spot. She just wants to sail her boat down the U.S. coastline and then down the Mexican coastline, land in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. She wants to spend her days in a hammock under the palm trees and her nights in the arms of dark-eyed men. That's all she wants. But she can't really get her act together to get that. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is, well, Sheaffer is a very intelligent woman. She's also very lazy. She doesn't like to work. She doesn't like any of her jobs. She gets fired from almost all of them. Well, from all of them. And so that's one problem. And she likes to party with young guys. And that kind of burns out her money and her ability to go to work and things like that. So she's kind of like, she's fun to be around, but yeah, she's got her flaws, I guess. So
can you say what she does for a living?
In this particular book, she is an insurance investigator. She has absolutely no training or anything, but she has been the bouncer of an all-women nude review. She's been on the cleanup committee for Roadkill Company. She's had a lot of weird jobs over the years. So anyway, you know what I wanted to do though? I wanted to share Sheaffer's sort of attitude to these young boys that she hangs around with, because she's got quite a collection. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Okay. All right. So this young man and she never gets really attached to them, although, and again, not a spoiler alert, but there is a man that will capture her heart in this book. There's a clue in what I'm going to read too. So if you like mysteries and you like to follow clues, listen in for the clue. But this is a moment that she's spending with a man named Spider-Man, because he's got spider tattoos all over. Sunlight spiked through the overhead hatch and woke me. I didn't need to roll over to look at my companion. I knew I'd find an inviting and sensuous man, all wrapped up in baby boy blue appeal. Tousled blonde hair, one arm probably slung over his eyes, pouty lips blowing little spit bubbles as he sighed in his sleep. I didn't need to lean in close to breathe the thick, musky smell of everything we'd shared. Our scent hung pungent on the warm, moist air of my cabin. Another faint scent lingered as well, cigarette smoke. I didn't remember him smoking last night, but then again, there was probably a whole lot I didn't remember about last night. No matter. I felt achy in that hurts so good sort of way. I considered waking him for another round, a sleepy, snuggly morning round. But first, I needed to pee. Half hour later, I wrapped my hands around a warm coffee mug and watched my young lover lope up the deck. A good-looking kid, I thought, tanned, tall, and well a bit awkward, even gangly on land. He was sure-footed on a surfboard and completely confident beneath a headboard. He waved and gave a loose smile, a goofy grin. I smiled and waved back. No doubt about it. Like so many young guys, Spider-Man was sweet and sexy and a lot of fun. But somewhere along the line, you have to roll over and talk to them. And that's where it all breaks down. Sheaffer.
Yep, that pretty well sums her up. I think she's quite a character. She's really smart too. And she's also very funny. As I was reading the book, the word sardonic just kept popping into my brain. She's just got that real sardonic humor about her, and she's got a pretty quick wit too. Were you really intentional about including humor in this book?
Yes. The thing is, again, I'm listening to her voice all the time. She was talking all the time, and she's pretty funny, as you mentioned. But I think for me, when I'm reading a mystery or a thriller, I like a little bit of humor somewhere along the line, because your heart just gets racing. There's so much action. You need to pause a little bit, you being the reader. So I like to have that pause in the action a little bit to laugh and go, oh, okay, and then you're ready to go on again. So I think humor does, even in the goriest of books, a little bit of humor helps, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so this kind of makes me also think about, it sounds like you and Shaffer have a whole lot in common, and I wonder how much you have in I wonder how much you have in common.
Hey, my cousin's listening to this, so.
I know. So, well, so Shaffer is a sailor, and you're a sailor, and Shaffer's a redhead. You're a redhead. So how much, and I have to say, when I'm reading it, I can hear your sense of humor in it. How much do you and Shaffer have in common? Like, do you know your way around a diesel engine as well as she does?
Well, I've never worked for a road cleanup crew before. There's that.
Is that the only thing you don't have in common? Because
that's the one that pops up right away.
Okay.
But
all right.
So the diesel engine, I'm just going to scoot along on this line here. Yeah, I do know my way around a diesel engine, and the reason for that is when I bought my sailboat many years ago, Blessed Be. I realized right away it was going to be too expensive to hire someone to come down and fix the bloody engine, and they break all the time, right? So I took a class from this wonderful teacher, David Walker, who had a school at the time called Wahoo Adventures, and David would come down to my boat and give me one-on-one lessons how to take apart a diesel engine and put it back together. So yeah, we're very similar in that regard.
Where was that? I feel like I remember Wahoo Adventures. Where was that? Was that here?
Seattle. Well, I don't know where. Yeah,
okay.
where the Wahoo Adventures was based, but I was based in Seattle.
Okay.
So David would come down and, that reminds me. She likes to sail, right? And she likes animals. She's got a little soft spot in her heart for animals. So we're like that. We share that. I love animals and I love to sail. I love anything to do with the sea. And so a lady dies right at the beginning of this book, an elderly woman, and Shaffer adopts this lady's cat, and she wants to take the cat out sailing. And what usually happens, Claire, when you take a cat on a boat and you turn on that big engine, the cat just like freaks out and disappears and runs away, and you don't see him for hours, you know. This cat is really special, and I think Sheaffer Blue has found a new crew member in this cat. So I wanted to read that, if that's okay. What
Yes,
she
please.
discovers about this cat is kind of fun. When I hopped into the cockpit, I found the cat snugged on a cushion on the starboard seat. From his comfortable position, he sniffed the air as if checking the weather, and then calmly watched as I unfurled the jib. There was something sort of eerie and yet at the same time sort of calming about the way that cat reacted to the thunder of the engine and the groan of the lines as they stretched from clew to cleat. All sailors know about the moment, the quickening, the breath and heart-stopping moment when the wind snaps the sails full and catches the boat in its embrace. In that second, the sailor is entirely, fully alive. In the next instant, when the engine stills, absolute peace takes hold, and the only sounds are the whoosh of water on the hull and the exhale of human breath and the beat of the mariner's heart. I longed for that silence, for that magical moment, for that peace. When I turned the key and the engine hushed, instead of the anticipated quiet and calm, a long, high howl pierced the wind. It came from the cat. He stood on the companionway hatch, balancing on all four paws, swaying with the boat's roll. With his head thrown back, he yelled up at the mainsail like a wolf at bay. No fear, no trauma, full-on confidence. I glanced skyward, and there it was, the ghostly light of the first 2 full orbs to grace this month. I laughed out loud and joined him. There we were, girl and cat on a boat, howling at a pale blue moon.
I love that. That was actually one of my favorite scenes because as I was reading it, I really could feel how much Sheaffer and probably you, how that feeling of sailing, how much you love it and being out on the water. But then there again, the humor too is there too, because what the audience, people who haven't read the book yet, don't know is that the cat, isn't looking so good throughout the book because
No.
because because the cat's been through some stuff. Yeah, the cat's been through some stuff. What's the cat been through, Jess?
So his owner, the old lady, was she died. I won't tell you how she died, but she died, and her body was burned to a crisp in a houseboat. Her houseboat was trashed, and they couldn't find the cat for a long time. And when they did, the cat is completely hairless with just a few little tufts of fur that lasted. And he's a pretty feisty old tomcat, and you can, he does look pretty gross all the way through the book. And he is going through his 9 lives one after the other.
Yep. I just loved imagining him on the boat, howling, bald and howling at the moon. It was great. So your 2 previous books are quite different. So one is memoir, is nonfiction, right? And then the other one, The Last Outrageous Woman, is a great friendship novel, female friendship novel. I love that one. So you turned to mystery for Sheaffer Blue. How was writing a mystery different than what you'd done before? How did that writing?
It's very different because you have to look for all the clues. I'm a plotter, not a pantster. I'm a plotter, so I do, long outlines and lots of lists, and I do a lot of research, lay the whole thing out, and then try to write into it. But especially with somebody like Sheaffer, she just said, no, we're not doing that, and we're doing something else, and off we go. So it was different in that I had to look for clues. I had to make sure there were red herrings and keep a certain pace. With The Last Outrageous Woman, that book, I mean, I kind of want to say I didn't even write it. I just listened to the voices in my head and typed out what they were saying. And these ladies had a story to tell, and they just said, just tell it exactly how we're writing it. So that was a little bit different. And the memoir, of course, was what happened.
Right. Well, so writing, I'm always curious for mystery writers. As you're writing, did you know the ending, or did the ending come to you as you were writing it? Because I think that some writers, when they write mystery, they actually start with knowing who done it. You know, here's the crime, and then they kind of work backwards. What was it like for you?
I had the last line. I knew what the last line would be, and that was, and I kind of just worked toward the last line.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I didn't have the whole
well,
ending,
and
but
that's
I did know
actually
the last line. I loved
yeah,
it.
and that is my next question for you. I ask this frequently of authors. How do you know when you're done? How do you know that the final sentence that you write, whether it's the last sentence of the book or just, you know, the last sentence that you put down, how do you I'm not very good at knowing when I'm done. How do you know when you're done, Jess Stone?
I'm not done with this book, despite the fact that it's on your shelves in your bookstore. I was looking at it earlier today and going, oh, I wouldn't write it that way. No, you're never done. You just have to do the best you can. I write probably, many, many drafts, 5 or 6 at least, full of the whole novel. So it changes so much. But eventually you just have to kind of fling it out into the world and get on with the next one.
Okay. I appreciate your answering that question, because I find that I like to ask that question of authors because they get kind of cagey about their answers. It's funny. I rarely get like a straight answer from an author on that one. So I appreciate that. You're never really done.
Because they're not done, they're still going, finished.
That's funny. Okay, so the title, A Sheaffer Blue Mystery, implies that maybe there would be more than one. Is there going to be another one?
Well, I hope so. If people like Shaffer and enjoy her adventures and her personality and her intelligence and so forth, I hope that, I certainly feel like there are a lot more adventures. And I know my publisher, Sidekick Press, is very interested in doing more books in the series. So, probably, yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
She's so funny, and she's so fun to hang around with,
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see, what happens if she does make it to Mexico one day. And I just imagine that if she is laying in it, she strikes me as somebody who would try to live that life, but I don't know, trouble's going to follow her, or it's just going to find her. So she'll be laying in the hammock on the beach in Mexico, but then something's going to happen. She's not going to be able to just do that. But yeah. What's that?
She's a troublemaker.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and she has such spirit. I mean, I love that you so she carries fur-lined handcuffs around in her bag.
Yes. Yes, she does.
Okay.
Well, you never know.
You never know when you're going to need them. Okay. Just I thought that was an interesting detail. So what are you working on now?
I am so excited. I am working on a book. It's a thriller, and I have a couple of magnificent teachers that I honor and cherish so much. They're helping me. Thrillers are very hard. I think they're harder to write, and it's set in the Pacific Northwest. And the joy of it is because it's such a new, exciting genre for me to explore. The hard part is I'll share this with you. I went to the police department here. This is pre-COVID when I was getting the idea set up.
Sure.
And booked an appointment with one of the local law enforcement officers, and we were talking, and I'm taking notes and I'm asking questions and all this. And at one point he stopped me and he looked at me and goes, "You don't really know any bad guys, do you?" And I'm like, "No, well, no, not really." And he goes, "Because you got to learn how to toughen up a little bit for this book." So that's what I've been learning, is how to speak bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fun. That's what
I think that it would be really difficult to write a thriller. I mean, because you're really going for that emotional, scary response. And I can't imagine how one would even go about that. But I am not a writer, so it all is like magic to me. So how you get it from here to the page is a wonder to me. So so it's a thriller set in the Pacific Northwest. So if it's a thriller, does that mean that is there anything paranormal happening?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. It's a kidnapping that happens at sea. A whole group of school children are kidnapped.
Oh wow. Okay.
And by some very, very bad people.
Oh.
So it's
okay.
I think they call it a closed room thriller. You know, it's pretty much.
Okay.
And it's on a boat, and there's a storm, and yeah.
So you're gonna get to capture that whole claustrophobic, scary feeling. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, I can't wait.
Things that can happen during a storm at sea with little children and bad guys with guns and all that.
Wow. Oh, cool. Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Well, so can you tell us, I mean, I've got them sitting right here and they're wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about each of these for those in the audience who are not familiar?
Sure. So Doggy on Deck, I sailed with my border collie for 16 years. And when he turned 18 years old, we crossed the equator together on his birthday. So that was really a thrill. And when he lived to just shy of 19, in that last several months before he was passing on, I was distraught. And my mother said, "Why don't you write a book about that dog? Because you've been with him 24/7 for his whole entire life, and you've been out at sea." So I did that. I sat down and I thought of all the questions that people ask about sailing with a dog or traveling with an animal. And I just made this huge long list. And then I started answering the questions, and I realized I had an anecdote for almost every question. You know, how does he go potty on board? Then I could tell how we got through that little to do. So all the questions that people would ask about it, I put in that book. So it really is Kit McSnipp's story. So that's the memoir, and it's, you know, memoir, but it's also kind of a how-to. And then the last outrageous woman, yeah, I went to my mom's house, and in Florida, she belonged to this group of ladies, and they called themselves outrageous women. I don't think they really were outrageous, but they called themselves that. And so we had lunch together, and we went back to my mom's house, and she said, "Oh, you know, it's so sad. We started out with 15 outrageous women, and now we have only 6. And I went, which all writers do. What if you were the last outrageous woman? And as soon as I said that, these ladies they came into my head, and they just started talking and babbling and blah, 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 like that. And so I had to excuse myself and go get a pad of paper and a pen, and I wrote furiously for 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, I had that whole outline for the book. Wow. Really rough, but wow. You know. So that was a delight to write. I just had to listen to those ladies, and they told me their stories. It's all about desires, and as you pointed out, it's all about friendship and caring between women and adventure. It's a lot of adventure, and it's about courage too. A lot about courage.
Yep, indeed. It's about all those things. Yep.
Thanks for asking that.
Well, I really enjoyed that one too. I mean, and it's very, what I appreciate about your writing is that you don't sugarcoat things, and you don't necessarily just wrap them all up in a little tidy bow. And I saw that in Blood on a Blue Moon and The Last Outrageous Woman, and I appreciate that about your writing. So, so there, I know that there are a lot of writers who are in the audience with us this evening, and what little pearls of wisdom would you share with them about, this whole journey of getting your work out there and published?
So, yeah, I don't know if I have any pearls of wisdom because I've seen the names and they're all like amazing writers, so, but if I were talking to somebody, maybe not as accomplished as our group, but still, I was, well, at any level, I'll take that back, at any level, I would say the best thing that's ever happened to me is finding teachers, good teachers, whether it's teachers at the Chuckanut Writers Conference, or it's taking courses from Laura Kelpakian or Cami Osman, whether it's working with Priscilla Long. I love working with Priscilla Long, Jack Remick. These people are all masters. And when I listen to them teach, I'm so humbled. I learn something every time. And I can feel my writing growing with every class that I take. So I would say, find yourself a mentor. And then when they tell you not to use adverbs, don't use adverbs. Listen to these people. They're pros.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say is suck up all that. If they're willing to teach, suck it up.
Yep. That makes sense to me. Well, we already have quite a lot of questions, so I'm wondering if we should get to those. Are you ready?
I don't
know. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and re-engage the chat so that everybody can tell you how great you are. All right, here we go. And so, so let's see. Some of them we have already touched upon. So Cami wants to know if there are more Sheaffer Blue mysteries in store for us, and you pretty much answered that one, I think, right? That we can look forward to probably seeing Shaffer again. So Mary Lou wants to know what your creative process is.
It's really messy. If you, when I first get an idea, the first thing that always happens is like, oh my, this is the Pulitzer Prize winner. This is the breakout novel. This is the movie. I start casting the movie, right? And then I get to the blank page. And then, as Sheaffer said, it's all downhill from there. That's where it all falls apart. I feel like at the beginning, all the words are like warm oatmeal. And it's like slipping through my fingers, and it's goopy and sloppy and gross and all of that. And I can't quite get a hold on it. But that's when I consult my teachers. I'm like, I got all these ideas. What do I do? And, they usually tell me to breathe and something on that order. But for me, the process is up and down and up and down. I'm really high. I love what I'm doing. And then I think, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. I'm really old enough and smart enough to be out of this racket. And then I go back up and then I go back down. But ultimately, when the characters start talking is when it starts coming together. And that's when I feel them. And that's fun.
Wow.
Hope that answers it.
That your answer reminded me a question that I wanted to ask you, and I forgot to, was who plays Sheaffer Blue in the movie in your mind?
Boy, you know what? I go around and around and around with that. I cast her with lots of different people. Who would you cast her as?
Well, of course, I'm immediately thinking of redheads. So my first thought was Amy Adams, and then Jessica Chastain. I think Jessica Chastain would do a great Sheaffer Blue after a hard night of a lot of Jack Daniels.
She might, Yeah, she would be pretty good.
Yeah, and Amy Adams also could do that. I don't know. Did you do?
Yeah.
Have you?
I just go every time I see somebody, in a movie or wherever, and I'll go, oh, that's her, because anyone can
Well,
color their hair, but so I don't have
yeah.
anyone at the
Well,
moment. Yeah.
Cami agrees with me. She says Amy Adams. Yes. So when
Right.
Sheaffer Blue does make the leap to the big screen, we'll all use all of our clout in Hollywood to get Amy Adams on board that project.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Use the Village book, slam that name around,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. And let's see. Mary Lou also wants to know, how long did it take you to bring Blumen to the bookstore shelf? So how long was that, process
For
to get
Sheaffer
it?
Blue.
Yes.
My earphone just fell out.
Oh, yep, for Sheaffer Blue.
Well, I had the book. I was working on the book for a very, very long time, but it won first place in the Chanticleer Murder and Mayhem category, and I think that got some attention for it. And then it won first place in the Black Magnolia book contest.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 2019, and my last time of ever being with other people in the human form, I got that award. And so after those awards, I think it got quite a bit of attention. And then Lisa Daly, who has a relatively new publishing company, came to me and she said, I really like this book. I like Shaffer. I think it's funny. And I would like to pick it up and publish it for you. So I went, okay, let's live local. Instead of going with the California Black Magnolia, they're a great little company, but they're Californian and she's local. So that isn't the question. The question was how long. So once we started and signed the contract, it went really fast, about 9 months, I think.
Okay. Oh, that is fast. Wow.
Yeah. The book was pretty well done.
Yeah. Let's see. So, and Laurel has a question about writing humor. Can you speak about your humor process, how you decide where to put it in, how you decide on the type of humor to use in each of your books? Any books on adding humor to your work that you would recommend? Do you know about any books that specifically talk about humor? There must be.
There must be, and I want to say that probably Writer's Digest has something on that.
Okay.
They pretty much cover all the bases. I can't think of a specific one right now. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
But how I decide, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when things are really, you've gone through a real rush of something, and you need a little break. I, as a writer, need that break, and I think as a reader, the break is necessary. And then that's kind of a good place to put the humor in. And then the other thing, I'm going to go back to listening to the characters, because I know that when I was writing The Last Outrageous Woman, I would just sit with my eyes closed and type and listen to these ladies. And sometimes tears would be running down my cheeks. And other times I'd be laughing out loud because these women would say the most ridiculous things. And Shaffer's got her own brand of humor. So if I just listen to her, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I'm nuts or anything, but there are voices all the time.
I believe there is a clinical diagnosis for that.
So I would just say, listen to your
Maybe it's just being a writer. That's the clinical diagnosis, is you're a writer. So there is a question about Shaffer's name, and I don't know if you want to answer this one or not, because the origin of Sheaffer Blue's name, and I would like to say that is one of the best. I really enjoyed the story of how Sheaffer Blue was named. So I don't know if you want to. I don't know if that would be a spoiler to reveal that or not. I'm going to leave that up to you to decide.
So fun when you're reading to stumble upon how she was named, that I wouldn't want to spoil that. I think it would be a spoiler alert.
It is really funny. I will say that.
Yeah,
It's really funny. And I would like to know how you came up with that particular idea, but I don't think that you can tell me without spoiling it.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think so.
so I'm sorry, Dana, but we can't answer that question tonight.
Yeah, not I can private message it or something, but I can't do
Yeah,
it.
there you go. There you go. Um, so speaking of sort of this multiple personality, listening to your characters, let's see. What state of mind are you in when your characters talk to you? Do you seek that state of mind on purpose, or do you even have any control over it? They just start talking and you just start writing. Like, what is there something, do you get into a certain state of mind when you're
I'd like
to
to
be
think
really
I have
open to
some
them?
control over it. I really would like to think that I have a tiny bit of control over these people. But, going back to the question about the writing process, when I'm in the point when I'm writing down the story, because editing is a whole different thing, as everyone knows. Editing's completely different. But what I do is I light a candle and I have a glass of water there, and I put my hands on the keyboard, and then I close my eyes, and I just let the little movies play and the people talk and stuff, and I type it out.
Wow.
And then when they stop talking, I stop typing. I hit save, and then, of course, it's all edited heavily later, but that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy, actually.
I was going to say, you're kind of making it sound easy, but when I hear other writers talk, it doesn't sound like it's easy at all. But I don't know.
Editing that's
You're like a medium. You're like a medium. You're channeling you're the conduit. You're
yeah,
channeling the characters.
that's probably, I think, why the thriller is so challenging for me, because I don't like that guy in my head. I really don't like him in my head. I'm fine with the little children. I'm fine with the good guys, the cop, and all that, but I don't like that bad guy in my head much. So he's been a challenge to write.
Yeah. Do you have to do any kind of, like, I don't know, cleansing meditation to get him out of your head when you're done writing with him for that day? Oh, that's your answer. Probably whiskey.
Yeah, probably a little whiskey.
Okay.
Walk the dog, that sort of thing.
Yep. Let's see. Cammie asked you another question about your writing process. Let me scroll down so I can find it.
Cammie is one of those teachers, by the way.
Yes. The narrative project.
Yeah,
yes. The great Cammie Ostman.
She'll take your writing to another level altogether.
Yeah. So she wants you to tell us about your writing process. How do you get feedback and do draft revisions so that you keep moving?
I work with a writing group, and I think that's super helpful to have some sort of a writing group. You need accountability. You need to have somebody saying, are you writing now? What are you doing? What are you working on? Haven't heard anything from you for a while. Laura Kolpakian has a writing group as well. That's a very helpful one. And I'm just talking about locally here. But my critique group meets every single Friday. We used to meet at the bookstore, but now we meet on Zoom. But they keep me going, and we argue and all that, but we stick together and help each other. So I would think that that's a huge part of keeping going on the story. Accountability.
Yep. And Cammie is saying yes for accountability in the chat. After she said moi for us saying how fabulous she is.
Oh, yes. I'm afraid to do that because I'll knock this out,
Let's see.
I can't see anything,
Yeah. Oh, I understand. Believe me. Yep. Okay. So Glenn is asking, are you and your fur babies longing to sail again? Is the Bahamas or a Caribbean your plan?
Well, he knows that.
Oh, so he's setting you up. He knows the answer to the question. He just wants you to
He's
answer for
setting me
everybody else. Oh,
Yeah.
Glenn. Well, what's the answer?
Well,
Are you
I'll
are you
sail.
are you going to sail with Parker?
I don't know about Parker. Yeah, well, yes, maybe, but Parker is a little small Havanese, and I sailed with a border collie. And as you know, border collies are brilliant. You know, he could take apart the engine and put it back together. This guy, not so much. He's cute. That's it. He's cute.
He's
So we'll
very
have to see
cute.
how he does on a boat. Yeah, he's been
Do
out
you
on.
do you have a boat? Do you still sail
I
regularly?
don't have a boat, but I do
Okay.
have a lovely neighbor who has a boat who takes
Oh,
me out
nice.
sailing. And he has to, we have taken Parker and his great big dog out sailing, and it's been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
He's still a
Parker's
baby.
young. He's young, right? He's very,
Yeah,
very
he's a
young.
baby.
So, Ray says Parker just started barking. Do you think he wants to sail? That's funny.
Funny.
Well, let's see. Are there that? I think that's it for the questions that were in the Ask a Question feature. Is there anything else that you wanted to
Those
say
weren't
about
too
Sheaffer
hard.
Blue? What's that?
Those weren't too hard.
No, come on, everybody. You're throwing softballs.
uh,
Oh, Priscilla wants to know if you write every day.
absolutely. Absolutely, without
Yeah.
question. The thing is if I don't write, like a day goes by, you know, there's life happens and so forth, you know, you get your COVID shot or whatever. I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I can blow it off a little bit. But then if I go 2 days, I get really quite miserable. And 3 days, you don't want to be around me.
Yeah.
I'm not a person to be around if I don't write. I write every single day, and I write
Wow.
lots of different things. And I learned that from Priscilla Long. You know, she said have 4 projects going at all times, and I pretty much do. You know,
Wow.
yeah, you have to. It's like, yeah, these goofy people that run every day. I can't even imagine it, but it's like,
I know some people run like 10 miles every day. That's insane.
oh no, what's their problem?
Maybe somebody in the audience does that.
Probably.
Probably. So I think that that's it for our questions. I have kind of a goofy speed round of random questions I can ask you. Do you want these?
Oh, I know you so well, Claire. Yes, okay. Here, wait a second. Let me prepare here.
Well, oh, and this is kind of your launch, right? So a toast.
This is my lunch. Oh,
A toast.
yep.
Cheers.
Toast.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is sort of inspired by what was his name? Inside the Actors Studio, Lipton. Anyway, the man who would always do speed round with the actors, asking them just strange random questions. So these aren't that crazy, but okay. So the first one is literary. 2 favorite authors you read growing up.
Hemingway and Dickens.
Wow. And what about when you and like when you were really young? That's what you read?
Well, see, here's the deal. I also read Lady Chatterley's Lover. I read a lot of the books that were like college English books because my mother went back to school when we were quite young, went to college, and she would use my dad's study as her place where she, and it was off limits. We weren't supposed to go in there. So, of course, I would go in there with my little flashlight and read those ones. So I read everything that was in the college curriculum that my mom brought home.
Wow. Very good. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Both.
Beer or wine?
Well, that's a tough one. I'd have to say both.
Okay. Zodiac sign?
Double Scorpio.
Double Scorpio. So are you like a true, that must mean you're like a true Scorpio.
Yes.
Do you tick all the Scorpio boxes? Because what is it they say about Scorpios? A slave to the table and the bed? That's what I've always heard about Scorpios.
Well,
I'm just saying, that's what I heard.
double Scorpio, let's leave it at that.
Okay.
My cousin's watching, remember this?
Oh, right. Oh, right. If you could speak any language, what would that be besides English?
Spanish.
Okay.
I can get around in a town. I can get around and I can do that, but I would love to be fluent.
Yeah. Okay. And this is my favorite question to ask everyone. If you could reread any book for the first time again, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard.
It's a fun one to think about.
There's that book, if it's a sailing book, because I have so many different categories,
Mm-hmm.
But you know that book called The Last Unicorn?
Oh yeah,
I love
Peter
that
Peter
book.
Beagle. Peter Beagle, I think, is
Yeah,
the author of
I
that
love
one.
that book.
Yep. Okay.
But there's a sailing one that's called There Be No Dragons, which I love too.
Okay. All right. We did suddenly get one last question from an audience member. So Linda Quinby Lambert wants to know, do you plan to set a book in some place other than a boat, like a favorite exotic spot, for example?
Yes, actually, I have the story outlined for a book set in Thailand.
Oh, cool.
On land.
Very good.
Hey, Linda. Linda's in my group.
Yep. And I have one last question for you. We were joking about it when we did our test run, but you said that your cousin's watching, so I don't think I can ask you now.
No pants. We said no pants.
My question was pants or no pants?
I know you, Claire. We made a deal, remember? We made a pact.
Well, yes, we did. Okay, well, on that note, is that a good note on which to end? Cheers. Do you have any final words to our audience?
No, thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for supporting Village Books. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without Village Books and the whole team over there. And support Village Books. Support, if you're in another area, your indie bookstore. I would say support your indie. Like the big A, they're doing fine as it is. Support the little guys on the corner. And yeah, thank you for supporting me. I appreciate it.
And here it is. Blood on a Blue Moon, a Sheaffer Blue mystery. I highly recommend. Run out and grab a copy from your favorite independent bookstore. And I think with that, Jess, this has been so fun. Thank you so much.
It's been fun, Claire.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yep. Okay, I think with that, we're going to say good night. Okay, good night.